Hi, it's Kamon Reynolds, and in this video I'm with Josh Cantrell with his, listen to that, quiet pump system. It's filling this half-gallon plus jar really quick, and he's going to hop on over here and fill some of these frame feeders, and then afterwards we're going to talk to him about all the technical details that he has to putting this system together, what it takes, and how you can throw it together yourself. I was really surprised on how inexpensive the pump was. So Josh, take it away and start talking.
All right, this particular model is the Remco 5500. These pumps, you can actually find them pretty much anywhere at any tractor supply. They come with a 1-year warranty, and I think at the time this video is being recorded, you can buy an additional 2-year warranty for 16 bucks. So 3-year warranty. If anything goes wrong, anything whatsoever, you can take it back, no questions asked, and get a replacement. I really liked that because I planned on using this thing a lot. Kamon said they were made in USA. They were actually for agricultural sprayers, like for applications like on a side-by-side or a four-wheeler where you don't have PTO access for a pump. These are really strong, good little 12-volt electric pumps. Here's the pump here. Now, I actually mounted it. I built a little adapter plate and put magnets on the back side of it, so I can just, in the future, as my setup grows or changes, I can be able to just kind of stick it anywhere that I want to. I ran it on the auxiliary switches on my truck, so what this has enabled me to do is, if you have a truck like this and you want to use your auxiliary switches, is I can run this pump with the key out of the ignition, the key off. And the good thing about this pump is once it builds up to 60 psi, that can be a lot for feeding bees, but oftentimes you're pouring the pressurized shot of syrup into a container anyway, so it's not too big of a deal. But the good thing about that is, you know, it's not going to, once it builds up to the pressure, it shuts off. So you don't have this running all the time. If you run out of syrup, it doesn't hurt these diaphragm pumps to run dry. They're also self-priming. So it pulls a low enough amperage to where you don't have to have a fear of your batteries going dead or anything like that. And I really like that. And see, the pump's on right now, but it's silent. You can't hear anything because it's up to pressure, and then the pressure switch kicks it off. We're up here on the top of the barrel here, and this is actually a 55-gallon food grade barrel that I bought at a local farm supply store. Oddly enough, I asked them what was stored in these containers, and they told me that it actually came from Pepsi company. So it's either had Pepsi or Mountain Dew in it. And I was kind of thinking, well, that's perfect to feed bees, you know, because it's had all that sugar in it before. But the way this works out here is I can remove this lid, and I've got it strapped here, and just conveniently to keep from losing your lid, you can shove that up in here. And I keep a rag around this too, because y'all know what happens when bees get around sugar syrup, especially in a dearth. They want to get in here, and these diaphragm pumps are not tolerant to dead bees or a lot of kinds of debris like a gear pump would be. So oftentimes I just carry a rag, just stuff it down in there like that, and when we're going down the road, I can fold it up like that, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's kind of handy. I'm terrible about keeping up with stuff. I lose a lot of things. I'd probably lose my head if it wasn't attached. But that kind of gives you an idea of what we've got going on up here. And see if I can get this out. This pallet actually isn't fastened out. We're losing our prime doing this, but that's okay. There's a really important part I need to show with these diaphragm pumps. If you see up in there, there's just a piece of 1/8" hardware cloth that's inside a coupler. I'm sure Bob probably taught this to Seth Hill, but I seen this on Seth Hill's video too, and I think Bob runs even his gear pumps like this, just as a little extra security measure. You don't want sticks or anything, or a potential rock, or you know how things are when you're outside a lot. But that is really important. This is 1¼ PVC pipe. When I first built this, I didn't put enough pipe cement around this coupling right here, and the pump wasn't working, and I was growing really frustrated, and I couldn't figure it out until finally I discovered I had a leak here, you know. And it's just basic plumbing. You can find these at any hardware store, just adapting it down to a 3/4 inch rubber hose. And on the other end, another really nice feature of these pumps is that they are a quick connect. And when you buy the pump, they come with some quick connects with the pump that have a little smaller barbs on them. But they actually, at Tractor Supply, carry these that adapt up to 1/2-inch pipe threads. And the pipe threads is just a perfect size that it fits really snugly by itself when you shove this 3/4-inch rubber hose over. Combination of that with a hose clamp and you get an airtight seal.
So Josh just talked about a few of the specs on this pump. He's got a few more details, price point, gallons per minute. But before we get into that, or you get into that, why don't you show us how quiet it is and how quickly it fills up these feeders, because that's what I want to know. So we got a 2-gallon mother load frame feeder that I brought. And that wasn't but just a little bit of pressure towards the beginning. It's still priming a little bit from the disconnect. There we go.
You know, when you disconnect the line, you lose your prime.
You do, and that's a 2-gallon frame feeder right there, which is what I really like to use. And you can see I use a few stick floats like that, and there you have it. And then look at that, it just shut off right there. The pressure got to where it needed. That's real handy and real quiet, and I love it.
Yeah, it's especially handy when you're wanting to feed a yard slowly as you're working it, because once it trips the pressure switch, it cuts off. And that's also handy since it is electric and it's being ran off of your truck batteries, that it's not pulling constantly, that it's kind of in a standstill state until you call on it again. This is just your standard fuel hose nozzle, you know, like you'd find at Tractor Supply. And they fit inside of the man. This is a Man Lake 1.5 gallon feeder. They fit great in here also. So you can tell it has its prime now. I'll pull it out and show you the flow. So it's flowing really nicely. It's good for in-hive feeders. It's good for jars. It probably would be good for open feeding. Let's see how it does in this jar.
That's a large jar. I don't know how big it is, but it's at least 1/2 gallon. So.
Oh. Got to get a little more practice in.
Get a little more practice.
This is another thing that really attracted me to it. Now, there are some things that I didn't go cheap on, because I remember Bob mentioned this in one of his videos, that not to go with a really cheap rubber or just a cheap water hose, that it would haunt you, that you really need to stick with a rubber hose. And I'm glad I've done that so far, because a genuine rubber hose is not going to kink. Also, you can have fittings crimped on to meet your needs, where that you can adapt this up. And that makes it really nice. And just like we were talking about earlier, on the other end, you can buy a pack of these, the quick couplers. I'll show you what they look like right here. These are the ones that actually come with the pump, and I just taped them over for now, so that way when I'm not using this pump setup and say I want to keep the pump mounted on the truck, I can just stick these in here to keep bees out of the pump. But you know, this is just a simple coupler going into the feed line here. This is the 5.3 gallon per minute. You know, all the information's right here. And I actually called Remco and asked them about this before I started, you know, really looking at the market of these particular pumps. And the tech talked to me, and he was telling me that I could have gotten by with the 3300. Again, this is the 5500, but something I discovered with the 3300 is it doesn't have the footage as far as how much capacity it has to pull fluid uphill. And if you're running like a tote or a different type of container where you're relying a little bit more on gravity to push your fluid out, and you have your fitting lower, the 3300 might even be better if you want to stick with a setup like that. But I knew that in the future, as I'm growing my little outfit, that I'd want to switch from 55-gallon drums to maybe totes or something by next year, and just having it interchangeable to anything that I stick it in, it's going to work really good. This pump, at the time of this video was being recorded, this pump is $160 for the
not bad.
For the 5500. And when you're out there like I was last year, and I had not a ton, but I had about 25 colonies, and I was really feeding them good in the fall. I was getting them as heavy as a box of rocks, and when you're packing it out there in 5-gallon buckets, you'll be glad you spent the money on this. And you can actually get the 3300, the smaller one I was telling you about. I think it's 84 or 85 bucks, and comes with the same warranty, still made in the United States. And there's a number you can call, and you can actually talk to a person that'll answer questions, and you can get parts, and that's worth a whole lot. And they were just really helpful, because I called the company directly, and it was just good, you know. So I would say total cost, you know, that this little piece here isn't long enough to mount to anything, and you can buy plastic drums anywhere for sometimes next to nothing. And I already had the pallet, and I safely, even with the extended warranty and the extra fittings and buying the premium hose, this entire setup I've got for less than $500.
It looks like Laurel says we're running out of battery time, Josh.
Yeah.
So we got to cut this. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah.
We'll be talking soon and picking some bluegrass music. And for those of you who have any questions on this system, down in the comments would be a wonderful spot. And we'll leave some links below to where you can see some of these pieces of hardware and where you can get them. Thanks for watching this video, and thanks, Josh.
I don't have a reel set up yet. I'm still trying to work on that, but the reels for these types of hoses are very expensive. But I'm thinking I can come up with something that'll be efficient and cost effective. I've just got to dig into that a bit deeper.
Yeah, they're real expensive. So Josh, this is a okay. You can't do that.